a huge fear of mine is forgetting what it was like in the beginning. I don't want somebody to come to me and say, like, how'd you grow your show? And I'm just like, honestly, we just kind of had fun and prayed for the best.
And then coaching calls were in the thousands between the two of us. So it's not like we just, let's just prep for 45 minutes. This is going to go fine. See, it's not just the prep work right prior. It's life. Life is your prep work.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was our Meetup Monday Q&A, all about insecurities.
It's actually really good. Like, that sounded cool. Meetup Monday Q&A.
That could have gone off the rails because I didn't know what I was going to say. Today, for episode number 631, what to look for and look out for in a mentor. That is a tough thing. That's a tough title.
Well, you did a really good job.
I appreciate that very much. So, today, are you going to pull it up on the TV?
Yeah.
You can't.
I can't.
But you can.
I can on your phone.
Godspeed.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
I got it.
So, today, we're going to talk about something can happen. Okay. The example I like to use is this. If you reached out to me, and I've used this before on the podcast. If you reached out to me and said, hey, Kev, I want to get in shape, and you look like you're in shape, I see you in the gym all the time, I know you used to be a personal trainer, I'd love help with that. Mm-hmm. An issue arises if I tell you to do what I've done, and I forget what I did to get started. And that can happen with mentors too. I know also it can happen if those mentors didn't reverse engineer how to succeed and they quote-unquote got lucky.
Yes.
Right? So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. Alan has a little chart somewhere that he's going to pull up on the TV behind us here.
There it is.
That's the wrong TV.
Wrong TV.
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it, but if you're just listening, no worries at all. We will make sure that we explain it very, very well.
All right, so these 4 stages, let me just make sure it comes up on the TV here for those of you on YouTube.
Technology is just
It's very cool that we get to do this. Okay. It's a little bit messy, but bear with me. Okay. And if you're listening, I'll make sure that audio-wise you understand what we're talking about here too. So the very first level, there's 4 levels of mastery in any endeavor. I don't care if you want to be a chef or if you want to be a ping pong champion or if you want to be a concert pianist. I don't know why I landed on those 3 things.
You always have the concert pianist. That's always one of them. Ping pong
know.
champion. That's a new one. I like that.
Pretty cool, right? Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Okay. The first level of mastery is what's called unconscious incompetence. In other words, you don't really know yet that you're not very good at it. So I'm going to use an example. I remember I was probably 10 years old, and I would see my mom and my stepdad driving. And I kind of assumed because all adults drive that I'd end up driving and it would be easy, right? I was 12 years old or so, and I was at my cousin Chris's. He lived in Hubbardston, Mass. And he had this big field. He had like 50 acres or something crazy. And he let me drive his truck in the field. And I was so young, and it was a stick shift truck. And it was so unbelievably challenging. So I went from assuming that I was going to be good at driving, just like every adult, to holy crap, and I got to the second level of mastery, which is conscious incompetence. Okay, so the first level of mastery is I don't even know that I don't know. I don't even know that I suck at this. That's the first level. Second level. Now I know I suck at this. This is like brutal. It was a stick shift. It was so scary. It was terrible. And I was too short. I was like looking over the thing. It was a pickup truck. The third level of mastery. See, when you're on the conscious incompetence stage, this is the mirror. This is basically like, oh, wow. I didn't realize how bad I was at this. You can do one of 2 things. You can either decide I don't really want to drive and you can avoid it, or you can look for a guide. I looked for a guide. So my cousin Chris taught me how to use the stick shift, and I stuck with it. This is the struggle bus. That's why I say the struggle bus leads to greatness. The party bus leads to mediocrity. Because the party bus is all about fun, and the struggle bus is where you get better at stuff. Next level of mastery is called conscious competence. This is when you've practiced long enough to now you know you got this. Okay, so imagine you get your license and you've been driving for a couple years. Now you're consciously competent. You're like, I'm a pretty good driver. I got this. I figured this thing out. Now, 10 years later, when you've been driving for 10 years, and I've been driving for probably 15 years now, something like that, Now I'm unconsciously competent. That's the fourth level of mastery. The fourth level of mastery is when you've been doing it for so long, you don't even realize how good you are at it. I'll give everyone an example of this. So my mom is an amazing cook. She can have a party, host a party, and she can literally like cook 12 things simultaneously. Dude, for me, I will like struggle with like 3 different things. There's like a veggie and a rice and like chicken, and I'll somehow screw it up. Because she's been cooking, not only that, she was working for BVT. She was a cook and a chef at BVT. And so she's been cooking for so long in her life that she's unconsciously competent. And I remember when, for your 30th birthday, my mom ended up defaulting and having to do a lot of the cooking because she was so damn good at it. And it was her kitchen as well. But we tried to help her. And it's like we can only help so much. We don't really know what we're doing because I'm unconsciously incompetent at cooking. I don't realize I'm bad at it, or actually at this point I'm probably consciously incompetent. But I never really focused on mastering it. It wasn't a big focus for me. I'm getting better, but so these are the 4 levels of mastery. Again, number 1, unconscious incompetence. This is called ignorance. You don't even know that you're not good. Second level of mastery, conscious incompetence. This is what I call painful new awareness. This is when it's like you step on the court and you're like, wow, I didn't realize I suck at basketball. This sucks. So you either decide I don't like basketball or you figure out how to get better. You start practicing. If you start practicing and getting better, hopefully get a coach, then you get to the third level of mastery, which is conscious competence. This is where you can have a bright new future. Conscious competence, sometimes your ego might flare because now you kind of know that you're good, but there's people out there that are unconsciously competent, the fourth level of mastery, that can wipe the walls with you, so to speak, in any sort of sport or whatever that endeavor is.
So the reason we're talking about that is because with a mentor, somebody who's been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, they might forget 2 things. They might forget what got them to where they are, and
Right.
they might forget how next level they actually are. So you have to be careful for the advice that you're getting. You've heard Alan say this many times, that people make it to the top of their industry and say, well, I wouldn't have worried so much. It's like, well, if you didn't worry, do you really think you would have gotten where you are today? I know if you and I didn't worry as much, we wouldn't be nearly as successful.
Right.
So, obviously take that with a grain of salt. That's our thing, but I do believe that it's probably like that for most people. But also understanding where you are in this,
Right.
in whatever it is. So the example I use in the beginning is if you came to me, okay, Mark Metry, our buddy Mark Metry. In the beginning, when we were just starting to hang out with Mark, we would go to the gym for an hour and we'd mastermind at Dunkin' Donuts for an hour. Mm-hmm. I would kind of choose the exercises and I would show Mark like what to do, right? If I forgot what it was like to be a beginner, my advice would not be nearly as good for somebody who had just started working out. If you reached out to me and I forgot what it was like to eat chicken and rice or to make sure I was tracking what I was eating, I might say like, yeah, you can eat pizza every day and get away with it. It's like, no, probably not.
No, definitely not at the beginning.
I can kind of, and it's still like I'm not going to get to my dream physique.
Can you
by
explain
doing
why that is?
A couple things. One, because I have put in at this point 15 years of weight training. I've been weight training since I was a boy, realistically. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot more muscle on my frame than most people. When, you know how there's the BMI thing, the body mass index, I'm not morbidly obese, but I'm obese for sure because I'm 5'5", 185 pounds. But most of that is muscle. Like I'm very heavy, dense muscle. Mm-hmm. But I've put in a lot of years to get that. That allows me to eat more calories than somebody my size because muscle burns more calories than fat does. So you might see me eating a pizza. I could genuinely eat a pizza a day and still lose weight. Genuinely. But the calories are right. That's why. It's because the pizza has 2,500 calories. I can lose weight on 2,500 calories. But imagine if I gave you that advice.
As a beginner.
As a beginner. Or you reach out to me and say, Kev, I just started a podcast. I'm so excited. And I just said, honestly, I think 6 episodes a week should be good. Good place to start. You need a studio. You got to have a studio with a 4K camera. Like if you don't have that, don't even bother. And then also if you don't have, I don't know, Dave Meltzer, like get Dave for your first guest. Like that'll be great. And then honestly, just don't really worry that much after. Like just show up and you know what I mean? Like just, it'll happen. It's going to happen. It'll just happen. That's terrible advice. It's terrible advice. because there's been so much that we have had to do.
What would be the truth? So that was terrible advice. Can you tell our listeners what the truth
For
would be?
sure. I just started working with another client the other day, and she said to me, one of my goals is to make the money to pay the services off, right? So I'm paying you X amount per month. My goal is to make that so I can have the podcast pay for the services. And I said, awesome. That's a beautiful goal. I love it. I will be fully transparent with you. That will not happen in the first few months. It just won't.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that quick. My advice would be start with 1 episode a week. Focus on consistency. Make sure it is a non-negotiable. Promote it every day on social media, every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Message 1 show every day to get on. Message 1 guest every single day to make sure you never run out of guests. Start a Facebook group. Build a community. Make sure your audio is fire. Do video. Create teaser clips. And again, this is the 10,000 foot view, but this is what I say. Repurpose your YouTube as a teaser clip. Start interviewing people that you believe are at your level that you can actually get. Like, you're not going to get a David Meltzer for your first episode, most likely. This is actually what it takes. And then do it for years and never miss an episode. That's what I would say. But I get asked that all the time. That's what I say. It's not easy, but it's not supposed to be.
Right.
It's not supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about this earlier. I've been in the gym weekly for 15 years. Like, for 15 years. I tore my labrum in my left arm. I learned how to box righty. Southpaw. I learned how to box the other way because I couldn't throw a punch with my left hand. I'm better this way now with my right hand forward. I'm actually better. But that's because I'm committed to it. And I would never tell you that you're just going to get in shape. Like, it takes conscious effort. That's all.
So these strong work.
I appreciate it.
These 4 levels of mastery, it's fascinating because no matter what area you're talking about, whether it's fitness, whether it's your intimate relationship, whether it's podcasting or business, what you're going to figure, you got to know what level you're at. We're right now we're on Next Level University, Next Level U. There's always a next level. And the question becomes, how do we get you to the mastery level of unconscious incompetence? How do we get you so good that
unconscious competence? You said
unconscious competence. I'm sorry.
Just gonna make sure.
No, I appreciate that. Unconscious competence. How do you get so good that you start forgetting how good you really are? Kevin and I gave a speech last week, and you heard it on Sunday. We are not necessarily proud of this, but we are in a weird way too. It's like one of those things. We only prepped for probably 45 minutes for that speech. And it was speaking on how to be a more effective speaker. But that's because we've been doing the influence quotient for a year now. And it's well over 100 speeches for me, well over 630 episodes for each of us. And then coaching calls were in the thousands between the two of us.
Sure.
So it's not like we just, let's just prep for 45 minutes. This is going to go fine. See, it's not just the prep work right prior. It's life. Life is your prep work. Okay, I'll give you an analogy. If you know who Tony Robbins is, Tony Robbins has been speaking for 40 years. He doesn't have to prep because he's been preparing for 40 years. He still will, which is ironic. Mm. But you could prepare for 9 hours. Let's say Kevin, myself, and Tony Robbins are all going to speak on stage this Saturday at 9 p.m. It's a late night speech. And Kevin and I prep for 9 hours each. Tony doesn't prep at all, just shows up. Who's going to do better?
Unfortunately, T-Robs.
Okay.
I mean, not unfortunately, but...
The reason why is because he has unconscious competence. He's been speaking for so long that his subconscious he can autopilot the thing. Just like if you're out there listening right now, if you've been driving a car or vehicles for more than 10 years, you are unconsciously competent. You can probably talk on the phone while you're driving. You can listen to a book while you're driving. You can probably put on makeup while you're driving. You shouldn't, but you probably could. That's all this is.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues for our listeners that we've seen is not everybody has people in their corner trying to lift them to the next level, and even the people who are trying to help don't always know how.
That's why Kevin and I created Next Level Group Coaching. It's a 3-month program on teams of 10 with all people committed to achieving their goals. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
And we only take 10 people at a time, so make sure you get in quick.
How do you get to the place of unconscious competence where you're so good that it's kind of running in the background, and then that way you can add something else? So at one point I was saying way too much, and so I had to focus on not saying in order to become a better speaker. That's become an unconscious competency for the most part. I still say occasionally. Once that became an unconscious competency, now I have something else to work on. Right now I'm working on not reaffirming you constantly, and I'm working on not saying right and okay a bunch. So I'm always working on something. So these 4 stages of mastery is an infinite game. And when we say there's always another level, even Tony Robbins, who's been speaking for 40 years, still can get 1% better. I was listening to a Tom Brady speech the other day. He said, I still know I can get 1% better. I know that I can be a percentage better. He said, I spent the last 2 days working on my craft. He's the best quarterback to ever live, and he still knows he can be better. And that's all we're talking about here.
How do you know what you're unconsciously competent at? I think we have so many opportunities to figure it out. I know when we started group coaching and people were like, hey, how do I do this? How do I fill this out? We forgot, right? It was like, oh yeah, not everybody does. Like, of course, you've never used Google Sheets. Of course you don't know what we're talking about. Like, how could you?
Yeah.
I remember when I hadn't used it, and it was like, Alan, how do I set this percentage up? Divided by what? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So we're guilty of this.
For sure.
Right? So how do you understand what you're actually unconsciously competent at?
I think the first thing to understand is how challenging it is to actually understand this. And here's why. What you're really good at, if you're out there listening right now, you are really, really good at something that I am not. For sure.
Cooking.
Okay.
Chef,
Cooking.
No, not me. Chef Jeff.
Right. So, but you probably have been so good at it for so long that you take it for granted. You don't even realize you're great at it. So to answer your question, how do you figure that out? You have to look at statistical norms. Okay. What's something that strangers have come up to you and been like, you are unbelievable at X. You're so good at this thing. You kind of have to take a step outside yourself and look at yourself. Like, what is it about me that is so uncommon? So for you, Kevin, and I'm always doing this with other people constantly. I always want to find people's genius zone. So on the team, Amy, her genius zone is being warm, kind, and loving. She's so playful and loving. She's such a sweetheart. Everyone loves Amy. Everyone. I don't know a single person who dislikes Amy. I don't even know how they could. That's a genius zone. And that's why as our assistant on the team, my assistant too, it's her genius zone. She loves people. People love her. Perfect. Right? There's a lot of people who are not that good with people. They shouldn't be our assistant who deals with people all day. Kev, you're unbelievably competent at taking consistent action. Way more than most people. You're very, very good at just doing it, even when you don't feel like doing it. That's like a superpower. Very few people, statistically speaking, are good at doing things they don't like to do.
Makes sense.
Okay? But you think that's normal, probably.
I did. For a while, I thought... So the way I coached was different than the way most people learn. Mm-hmm. And that was like a major Jeffing, and I learned so much, and I've filled those holes in, filled those gaps in. But for me, it was... When I know what to do, I just try to go do it. With other people, they have to be the type of person who does it before they'll do it. And it was just this weird thing for me. So, yeah, that's definitely something that... Squatting, that's another thing. Mm-hmm. Squatting's easy. It's not hard.
When you first taught Mark Metry how to squat, it was so fascinating because Mark was brand new. He was doing just the bar.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to watch because... everyone starts as a beginner,
right?
But you haven't been a beginner since 16 years old. You completely forget what it's like.
Luckily for me, I've coached people how to do it, which is a great. I mean, okay, if you're at a job and you've been at your job for 10, 15, 20 years, you're probably unconsciously competent.
Yeah.
Until you teach somebody else. I
remember
remember at my old job, in my mind, it was like, what? I don't understand. Like, all you got to do is cut an angle on this thing, and then you use the knife and just dig out the middle, and then you just put it up, and it fits. Yeah. And it's like, wait, I've never done this before. It's like, oh, no, that's right. Of course, you haven't done this.
Yeah.
You fill the machine with this thing, it spits it out, you make sure you spray it at an even level. It's like, I don't know, how do I read this floor plan? It's like, oh, you've never read blueprints, of course, right? It's common.
I just messed up the screen. I apologize. Switching it back.
Now we're going to have to have a physical altercation.
Yeah, now we have no choice. Okay, we're back. So, question for you, Kev.
Yeah, sure.
How do you make sure that you're taking advice from mentors that is sound when they have become unconsciously competent? And I'll be transparent when I ask this question. We have some mentors, Evan Carmichael, Nick Cavuto, David Meltzer, and many more, who have become unconsciously competent at many things. And when we take advice, we have to remember that. So how do you handle that?
Usually we mastermind. I'd love to take all the credit for it, because, sometimes I feel like I deserve it. But no, I'm just kidding. We mastermind about it and say, like, look, I don't know about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
No? Okay. I don't really agree with that either. Okay, let's get to the root. That's kind of how this episode came up of, like, we've only been podcasting for 4 years.
Yeah.
In 15 years from now, it's going to be way harder for us to remember what it was like now.
I know.
And that's a huge fear of mine. I talk about that all the time. A huge fear of mine is forgetting what it was like in the beginning. I don't want somebody to come to me and say, like, how'd you grow your show? And I'm just like, honestly, we just kind of had fun and prayed for the best, and here we are.
I would
hundreds
never
of
say
millions
that.
of listens later. I know.
If
but
you ever hear Kevin or I say that,
take me out back and put me down.
Yeah, pull up this episode.
But that's a fear. It's not that, but there's a fear of losing the perspective of what it was like in the beginning because so much has changed.
I try to remember. Like, I have vivid memories of feeling down and those stories of what it's like to be broke and all that. How do you find your genius zone? Like, how do you know what your genius zone is?
Honestly, I think it's the things that I get the most compliments on. And the things that's one of them. Yeah. But I think it's the things that I get in flow and I'm like, I genuinely feel like I could be the best at this. Genuinely. And it's a weird place for me because there's not.
Give me an example.
Speaking. I feel really good speaking. Mm-hmm. The best I've ever felt. Genuinely. The best I've ever felt of, like, at Tony's age, I feel like I'll be better. But that's because I think I'll have more reps than him.
Yeah, and
we have 630. Like, there was no podcast when Tony Robbins started.
I know.
Now we're blessed, right? But I think it's that stuff. I think it's podcasting. I think it's speaking. I think particularly podcast coaching because I think I have a way of coaching people, but I also have the knowledge because we've had to learn it.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Not everybody. A lot of people want to go quote unquote viral. Understand this: going viral doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't force you to learn. If you were born with washboard abs, whatever you want, like if you want a giant butt and you're listening to this, if you want giant biceps and you're listening to this, if you were born with those things, you would never have to learn what it would actually take to get those. So be careful with people that go quote unquote viral. We had somebody speak on a stage that we shared. I'll leave it at that. And I don't have anything against this person. But this person's thing was like how to go viral. It's not an end game. That's not the game you want to play because where do you go from there?
Right.
You can't replicate that. It's literally called viral for a reason. It doesn't happen often. It's not something you can repeat. So make sure you're learning from people who actually did it, who actually put in the hard yards, the long yards, who actually showed up consistently and they did the right thing. They had going back to our last episode or Wednesday's episode, they had the right formula. Make sure you're learning from people who actually have the formula.
On that point, I think it's really important to understand that sometimes, what's a good example of this? I use Evan Carmichael and Eric Thomas. They're both really successful on YouTube. And I remember hearing that Eric Thomas, that one speech, it's an unbelievable speech. He was at a middle school and it was so strong and so well done. And I'll give him credit for that all day. But LeBron James tweeted it and it went viral versus like Evan Carmichael having literally 3 videos a day every day for 4 years and only 1,000 subscribers. See and now 2.5 million, 12 years later, if you're going to learn about YouTube, which one should you learn from? Are you going to learn from the one who kind of stumbled upon YouTube a little bit, or the one who reverse engineered it and has 6,575 videos? You got to go for that second one. And so again, the name of this episode has to do with mentors. First of all, let's go through that real quick because we got a minute on the clock. If you want a mentor, first and foremost, you need a mentor. If you want to get to the next level, mentors are the way. Or coaches. Mentors and coaches are kind of the same thing. A coach is just a mentor you pay. Number 2, what do you look for in a mentor? They should have accomplished already that which you want to accomplish, or at least something similar. Okay, on the last episode we talked about if you want to bake a chocolate cake, you need the right recipe. Make sure your mentor has baked the type of chocolate cake that you actually want to bake, at least their own unique flavor of it. And then the third step is some sort of structure. You got to do weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. Every single mentor I've ever had, it never lasted if it wasn't consistent. And so right now we have Nick Cavuto every single week, Dave Meltzer every other week, and Evan Carmichael is kind of monthly at this point. And we're so blessed. But that structure, remember, if you have a game every Saturday, you're going to practice harder during the week. And that's just the truth. And then the last thing is be careful of their unconscious competencies. Remember, when they give you advice, they might have forgotten what it was like to be on level 1 or level 10 or whatever. If they're on chapter 50 of this life and they're 50 years old and they've spent 30 years learning business and you're starting a business, just remember that a lot of what's really difficult for you is actually very easy for them, and it's really important to understand that.
I think a great question is if you lost all of your knowledge that you've accumulated over the years and you had to go back to the beginning, what is the one lesson you would take with you? Because it's
great question.
It can't be take it easy, right? Because you wouldn't get, Right. I think that might be a great question. And I think you can tell from the answers. That's the other thing, too, because the answers you get from social media versus behind the scenes is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
We're pretty hardcore on here in terms of, again, heart-driven but no BS. But, that's what I would tell you for a podcast. All of those things.
Yeah.
Genuinely, that's what it's going to take. And you're not going to make money right away, for sure.
And here's one thing that's super important if you want a mentor as well. So we're interviewing Stephen Kotler this week. It's going to be dropping this Sunday.
Yes.
He wrote a book called The Art of Impossible, and he studied the neurobiology of mastery. So these 4 levels of mastery, remember, there's neuroscience behind it. So he literally says verbatim in his book, frustration is a necessary part of the recipe for mastery. And this is not based on hearsay. This is based on actual science, neuroscience. So just understand that it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Mastery is challenging, just like when we first started driving a stick shift. It's supposed to be challenging. Now, it's not supposed to be super challenging forever, 24/7, but it's definitely going to be a tough journey. Believe it or not, the tougher journeys actually create mastery. The people that succeed overnight out of luck or stumbling upon it tend to actually master less because they don't have to.
I remember when I did my bodybuilding show, I literally went to the person who I saw who had the best results. Like Justin. Yep. I found a guy who was local who wanted to be the best in the world. And I was like, you know what you're talking about clearly. Help me.
Right.
Help me. Just tell me what to do. And
How did it work?
I won.
Yeah.
I almost died, but I won. I won the show. So if you're looking for that, Alan and I would love to be that for you. Again, I'm not going to tell you anything that I wouldn't do. I'm not going to tell you to do anything I haven't done. And I'm not going to tell you to do anything that I don't think will work, particularly when it comes to podcasting. Mm-hmm. Genuinely, 630 episodes. We're blessed to have many clients and things are going really well. And I'm just super grateful for that. So particularly if you have a podcast and you want to grow it, I know for a fact, I don't know much, but I know for a fact I can help you. And I'll actually tell you exactly what it'll take. There's no BS.
So I am no good at fixing cars. I'm no good at cooking. I'm not great at baseball. But when it comes to reverse engineering finish lines and helping other people maximize their potential and achieve their goals, especially business goals, it's everything to me. It's my passion. It's my purpose. Helping people maximize their potential is what I've been doing my entire life, even when I didn't know I was doing it. If that is intriguing to you, if you're out there right now and you're like, you know what, I know I want to get to the next level, I know I'm not living up to my potential. I am your guy. I will help you do that. What I say to you will not always be fun or easy, but it will be the truth, and I promise you, you will get better. That's a fact.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you listen to Sunday's episode. Like Alan mentioned, Stephen Kotler is our guest, and he is world class when it comes to understanding humans and their capabilities and what it really takes to reverse engineer a finish line and figure out the formula to success. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always, we do not have fans. We have family. Talk to you on Sunday.
Talk to you soon.